More casual conversational cartoon curriculum that's very concise and relatively correct. As soon as possible, A&P. Chapter 22, second attempt at trying to say something. Once again, please remember the best way to do this stuff is to download the graffiti sheet and follow along. It's a little bit easier if you have a paper in front of you. So last time we were talking about innate and adaptive defenses, first and second line and third line defense. We talked about pathogens and gave some examples of things living and non-living that can act like pathogens. Now let's go specifically after things such as the first line of defense. The first line of defense, you remember, is the intact skin and mucous membrane, the outside wall, so to speak, the castle wall. When we look a little closer right here, we are, of course, talking about the skin, the mucous membrane. So let's just real quickly review some of the things you already know about the skin. Way back in chapter 6, and we talked about the integumentary system. In chapter 5, we talked about things such as different types of epithelium, such as stratified squamous epithelium. So we have several layers of cells, the outermost ones being flattened. These things, particularly on the outside, are filled with keratin, a very tough waterproofing protein. It takes approximately 40 days for the cells to move from the bottom layer, the stratum basal, all the way up to the outside layer, the stratum corneum, and then they fall off. Again, they're being replaced constantly as a kind of a throwaway system. We'll make the analogy that when you go to the doctor and they want you to sit on the bench that has that piece of paper on it, looks like butcher paper, you know that they're going to get you to sit there, you can get your exam done, and when you leave, they're going to tear that piece of paper off and throw it away. Well, this is what's happening to the outside of you all the time. This is that disposable outermost layer. Also like to point out that hair, of course, is part of your natural defense also. In your ear, in your nose, eyelashes, and eyebrows. All those things have a defensive nature to them also. Again, please go back and reconsider what you know about the stratum corneum traits. The fact that it is dead. The outermost layer of the epidermis is several cell layers thick. All the cells are dead, so they can't die on you. They are relatively dry. It is thick, and they are constantly flaking away. So it's a dead zone on the outside of you to make it difficult for anything to get inside of you. All right, as far as secretions are concerned, associated with the skin, sweat, of course, sudoriferous secretions. pH is usually around 4 to 6, so it's slightly acid. It does contain salts, you know that, but the taste of sweat. It does have an antibody called IgA, and there are 5 basic categories of antibodies, and this is the one that can be found at the surface of the body. So IgA, they're found at the surface of the body. That's not where they're called, IgA, but it's a good way to sort of kind of remember it, at the surface of the body. Another thing that's found inside sweat is nitrogenous waste, such as urea, which eventually becomes ammonia and carbon dioxide, because that's where it came from. Again, with the nitrogenous waste and the acid and the salts, that makes the outside of the skin kind of a daunting place. So over here we have an idea called acid mantle. The skin is sort of like a desert of sorts, but it's not just a dry desert. It's a desert that has chemicals in it. So it's sort of like a dry desert, western desert, and then a salt flat. The salt flat is not just dry, it's dangerous because of its chemistry. Another thing right here is sebum, which of course is oil. It is waterproofing and prevents the stratum corneum from cracking too easily. The reason why this is significant is because if you do allow the outer layer of the epidermis to crack open, you've just created crevices for bacteria and such to get down deeper, closer to your living cells. So sebum helps prevent this from happening. Now, again, one example of where bacteria do get inside the skin is acne, where bacteria go down along a hair follicle down to a sebaceous gland and then become active right there. Again, inside you, it's warm, it's dark, it's moist, there's food everywhere. It's a great place for bacteria to raise a family. And right there at those very active oil glands is a perfect place for those bacteria. Of course, around puberty, when he or she starts making more oil in these areas, acne becomes more of an issue. By the way, another point of this thing is anything that causes your epidermis, particularly stratum corneum, to crack is problematic. So using too many alcohol-based hand sanitizers might actually dissolve away some of the sebum and make the skin more susceptible for entry. Cerumen, just a fancy word for wax, again found inside your ear. And again, let's go back over here and talk about the fact that you have an acid mantle to your skin created by these chemicals, but also there's something called positive outflow. When it comes to sweat, oil, and even wax, these things are created inside the body and they are pushed to the surface of the body. So in this terrible picture right here, what we got here is your body. Yeah, there you go. And you have your digestive system running through you. You have your upper and lower respiratory system. Here's your skin. Here's your reproductive and urinary systems. And all of these things have positive outflow. That is, whenever they become irritated, or even naturally, they grow from the inside out. Or if they become irritated, they excrete things from the inside out. So a sneeze or a dripping nose, a cough or vomiting, a diarrhea, any kind of drip, drip, drip down here, and your skin being pushed outward so it flakes off and falls off. All that is a great example of positive outflow. Again, the idea that you're getting rid of your surfaces so nothing has a chance to embed themselves. Even the menstrual period of the menstrual cycle is an example of positive outflow. That's secretions. Mucous membranes down here. So much to be said, so little time. Here we go. Mucous membranes, in general review. Remember, goblet cells are called mucous cells. And in this case right here, remember mucus is M-U-C-O-U-S. There's an adjective. And it's all about this noun, mucus. There's the noun. So this is the stuff right here. And this right here is an adjective that describes anything associated with this stuff. So you can talk about mucous cells and mucous membranes because they make the stuff mucus. Okay, simple distinction right there. So mucous membranes, goblet cells are mucous cells. They produce that stuff called mucus. And again, the production rate changes according to the need. The mucus on the inside of the respiratory system and the digestive system and these openings for the reproductive and urinary system, those mucous membranes again act as if they're making a disposable surface, as if it were disposable carpet. It gets messed up, you throw the thing away. If you're under attack, they make more mucus and they throw it away faster. Again, positive outflow. So the rates and flow are distinctive. Cilia, remember that in the back of your nasal cavity and down inside your trachea, you do have cilia that sweep mucus towards your throat so you can swallow it down to your stomach. So sweeping from the back of your nasal cavity to your throat so you can swallow it on down, or sweeping it up your trachea so you can cough it or grunt it up and then swallow it on down. Of course, when you have excess mucus, you probably are reflecting the ideas of an infection. So therefore, more of those noises right there as you're cleaning out that disposable and probably polluted mucus. Okay. Next thing right there, let's look at this. Yeah, other secretions. For other secretions, again, at the surface of the body, saliva usually has a pH that's slightly acid. It does contain a kind of a generic enzyme called a lysozyme. And in general, the lysozyme attacks bacteria, general bacteria. So therefore, you do have a lot of bacteria that live inside your mouth. You try to keep the population under control. Also helping out in this is IgA. Again, that one kind of antibody found at the surfaces of the body. Then there are also nitrogenous wastes that are part of the saliva. And again, your salivary glands are part of your excretory system. You do dispose of some sort of blood garbage, yeah, even through your saliva, which is one reason why if you eat a lot of garlic, then you brush your teeth and you gargle and you do everything right, it might still come back at you later on because the extra sulfur that got inside your blood might be excreted back through your salivary glands. Another example of that is when somebody has chemotherapy and they might complain that they have a metallic taste in their mouth. It could be because those chemicals are being excreted from the blood, collected in the salivary glands, and coming into your mouth. This also explains why that sometimes at the end of the day, wow, your bad breath is pretty amazing, and sometimes there's a bit of an ammonia smell to the thing. Okay, so saliva, so much more. Oh, and also please remember, positive outflow, well, sort of, kind of. You swallow the saliva, it goes down to your stomach, and there you have a chance with stronger acid to kill things. Gastric juices, here we go. Gastric juices, the pH is much lower, so it's extremely acid. The acid is hydrochloric acid. And there's also a protein digesting enzyme that's there called pepsin. So if something is swallowed on down, say a bacterium or such, when it gets down here, both the acid and the protein digesting enzyme have an opportunity to kill the bacterium. Okay, next thing, lacrimal fluid, fancy name for tears. Yes, there's lysozymes inside, just like with saliva, and there is IgA. Again, it's on the surface of your eyes because they are exposed to the outside environment constantly, and if there is an infection, you produce more tears. Your eyes weep a little bit. Vaginal secretions. Again, lactic acid is common in vaginal secretions. The pH is around 4-ish. It's extremely acid and therefore very dangerous for bacteria, fungi, and such, even for sperm, which is another story for another day. Down here, urine. Urine is usually slightly acid, can be more or less. And of course, it contains a lot of nitrogenous waste. And the positive outflow in each one of these things says you pass this material to the outside of the body or through a tube to the outside of the body. So again, very much an example of a positive outflow, and very often an acid production too.